This has been a video that I've been extremely excited about making, not just filming and talking about it, but also going back to rewatch all of Edgar Wright's films because he is a fantastic director and one who I've highly respected over the past few years. As an Englishman myself, and as Edgar Wright is English, a lot of his films contain British humour, and you don't get that from too many mainstream films these days, or in general. Films which even foreign audiences enjoy, despite the humour being more British than for around the world. So I've been really excited about covering this director Edgar Wright, as he has released a new film last night in Soho. So as we do in this channel, we take franchise or director's filmography, we check out all their films and we rank them from worst to best. But before I get into this, please let me know what your ranking is down below. And just another word of warning, I'm not including any documentaries he has made. I don't like to include documentaries in my rankings because frankly, they're documentaries, you know, they're not things that were written out, you know, brought in actors to do so. So it just makes it a lot easier, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So without further ado, let's get into my ranking of all 7 Edgar Wright films. Coming in at 7th place is A Fistful of Fingers. This is Edgar Wright's first film, his student film. So in most cases, when a director makes their first film, it's going to have a lot of restrictions and thus mean it's going to most likely be in last place. I won't lie though, I did have fun watching this film, as it's just really silly and stupid, but it has its charm. It's so over the top, but just because you can see Edgar Wright's humour injected into it, it's hard not to enjoy. Now, of course, with a film like this, and a parody film, if you look at it bad from a filmmaking sense, as it doesn't make sense, but it's extremely fun. These are like a guilty pleasure type of film for me because I really enjoy a few of the scary movie films. So something like this really did entertain me, and as it is a student film, I kind of let the bias take place. But yeah, it is easily in last place, but it's a dumb, fun film. Quick disclaimer which I didn't mention, but besides A Fistful of Fingers, all of Edgar Wright's films are brilliant and very good, so it's very hard to rank them. So if there is a film which you'd have higher on your list which is maybe lower down, pay attention to my rating for it and you'll see that I still like it a lot, but just obviously something has to be lower down, and when it comes to a director with such a great filmography, that gets difficult to rank them. So I'm not by any means saying that a film is bad by having it this low, it's just I prefer the other brilliant movies he has produced. Coming in at 6th place is The World's End. This film maintains Edgar Wright's quirky, grounded humour and characters, and overall tells a fun story. A pub crawl film in itself from Edgar Wright would have been fun, thanks to such a likeable cast which always have great chemistry together. But this film takes a bizarre twist, which is actually truly shocking if you don't know about it coming into this film. The sheer over-exaggeration of certain things just make it so enjoyable, this twist, and that's what really makes it shocking because it just comes out of nowhere. But like with a lot of Edgar Wright films, especially his comedies, at the centre there is a good message and quite a bit of emotion to be had. A deeper message of letting go and growing up, which is done in a natural and effective way and isn't just forced in to have a little bit of emotion in it. The World's End provides a fun time, whether you're expecting a pub crawl movie or The World's End, and just the way Edgar Wright makes a film just makes it so entertaining. Coming in at 5th place is the newly released Last Night in Soho. Like with all Wright's films, Last Night in Soho sticks out as a truly unique experience, touching upon things that no other film has ever done. Commonly associated with this director is his beautifully creative cinematography and his quirky humour. However, the latter isn't really here in this film, so coming into this, it doesn't really feel like much of an Edgar Wright film. However, it swaps out for a more horror-esque thriller drama where it keeps you wrapped up in the mystery and constantly on the edge of your seat. It tells an intriguing story from 2 different points of views, you know, Thomasin McKenzie in the modern day and Anya Taylor-Joy back in the 60s, and it conveys it in such a way which feels realistic to both, you know, the colours and just straight up aesthetic of the 60s feels like a really nice blend with what we're seeing in this film and the modern day. This film kept me intrigued for the majority of the runtime as it slowly exposed more aspects to the viewer. However, once it met its third act, it didn't necessarily crumble, but I just don't think it stuck the landing as Edgar had intended. It ventures into a less tension-packed film as things are revealed, and a lot happens in a small amount of time, which just doesn't really give you enough time to process everything at once. And as it does that, it feels tonally inconsistent as to the slow approach of the first 2 acts. That's what hurts this film from possibly being one of my favourites of the year, as it doesn't stick the landing it had set up for. That doesn't really distract too much from visually beautiful film that Edgar Wright has made, with a strong performance from Thomasin McKenzie. But overall, at the end, I won't obviously go into specifics, but I found myself predicting how it would end, so that might have just been my sheer intelligence, but make of that what you will. Coming in at 4th place is Hot Fuzz. This film initially starts off as an entertaining comedy, but once it gets into the flow of things, it unlocks so much more potential, which just elevates it to a new level. On top of the highly amusing comedy and the strong character chemistry, there is an intriguing plot and mystery at the centre of it, which differs from most similar movies. Just like in all of Edgar Wright's films, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's chemistry is unmatched, and it provides a steady foundation for everything else to build off of. Hot Fuzz offers up much more than meets the eye. As mentioned, there is a great mystery amongst all the hilarious moments. However, retro action movie lovers also get a kick out of it, with some callbacks to them. You feel like you know what you're going in for once you see the first 2 acts, but then once the mystery strikes, there is a whole load of fun waiting for you on the other side, making it impossible not to enjoy yourself. Coming in at 3rd place is Baby Driver. Edgar Wright tells a simple story yet makes it so unique thanks to his beautiful and stylish way of creating films. Its most unique aspect is how it ties in music into pretty much everything this movie is about, whether that's the editing, the timing of gunshots, or even the way the scene is shot. Baby Driver is a fast-paced film which never lingers too long in any places. It equally balances the romantic side of things as well as the heist aspects, so it weighs out nicely. And as mentioned about those romantic aspects, although not a lot of time spent between Baby and Deborah, they do establish a nice relationship which is enough for you to want them to succeed. This entry into Wright's filmography treads familiar ground, but as any great director does, he takes a familiar story or concept and makes it so unique that it stands out amongst the rest. And that's thanks to all the quirky aspects he chucks in, the music I mentioned, and you get one of the most uniquely constructed films in recent years. Coming in at 2nd place is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I could understand the fuss about this film, but when I watched it, I didn't think this film was the one for me. However, rewatching it in time for this video, I found a new enjoyment of this film, and its rating jumped massively up from what it was, from being probably about mid-70s to nearly into the 90s. This is one of the most unique films you will ever see, tying in many different aspects from video games, comic books, music, and not to mention the crazy story. Every shot is filled to the brim with creative talent and visual aspects from Edgar Wright, whether that's just the dialogue or as I mentioned, the visual effects in the background. There is so much detail, and on many occasions I found myself pausing the scene just to look around and see what was going on. As mentioned on first viewing, I didn't like it too much, but I didn't really know what I was getting into when I first watched it. I just flicked it on because I saw it on Netflix. This time, now knowing what to expect, I could fully embrace everything, as it wasn't as much as a shock to the system, and honestly it is hilarious as well as being super unique with how it's edited and put together. The story is obviously bizarre and over the top, but it's such a charming film, and once you know what you're getting into, it's hard not to love it. So I'm glad that I really did enjoy it on second viewing, as I was missing out on huge amounts of fun. But coming in at 1st place is Shaun of the Dead. As this being a great British comedy, as well as just a great comedy in general, I've seen this many times, and it gets better with each rewatch. And I'll touch upon why in a sec. This film was made in a time where horror parody films weren't well received and weren't really taken seriously because they're just rehashing elements from previous horror films. While this film doesn't completely rehash them, it just uses them to tell its own story, and it's not really a parody at all. This film surprised everyone thanks to Edgar Wright's creativity with how he displayed everything and all those tropes, and just the hilarious cast that is amongst it. As mentioned, in a parody film, you expect things borrowed from other horror films, but Edgar Wright goes out of his way to contain much more quality. At the center of this story is shown that the people that consist in this film go about their days pretty much living like zombies, as they have their same day-to-day routine, which keeps them kind of miserable. So once the zombie apocalypse does strike, it's hard to notice any differences at first. Before the zombie outbreak strikes, there are plenty of lines which have certain meaning or character interactions, but whether they're foreshadowing or just being general character interactions. And then you fast forward post zombie outbreak, and there's a lot of repetition on purpose, as the things they are repeating give new meanings to what they were saying. So stuff like that you don't really notice too much on the first watch through, but as someone who's watched it many times, I highly appreciate those things, and it's a very clever way of telling a story. As mentioned, Shaun of the Dead is more than just a great horror comedy, it is just a great comedy in general, and in fact a great movie, thanks to the continuously great chemistry between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, which is a recurring theme in a lot of Edgar Wright films. The story is funny yet emotional, making for nothing short of an entertaining watch. Thank you so much for watching my video. As mentioned, please let me know what your Edgar Wright ranking is down below. I'm really intrigued to know. If you'd like to see my previous video, which is a paranormal activity ranking, I'll leave a clickable card up in the corner here where you can check that out. If you could please like and subscribe, that would really mean a lot. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope to see you in the next one.